That's right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie. Thank you for joining us as we host our second webinar as part of our BCFPA summer webinar series. We have invited Alain Picard from GS1 Canada to speak to us on barcodes and beyond, understanding product identification through barcodes and a review of Health Canada's labeling and packaging regulations. Before we begin, I just want to remind you on a few things. Our summer webinar is now out, so you can find our newsletter on our website. In it, you will find past event summaries, upcoming events, and our 2023 scholarship recipients selected essay on applications of AI in the food safety. If you are interested in upgrading your membership to sustaining membership tier, feel free to reach out to us through email, and we will be more than happy to explain to you how the membership tier works and how you can become more involved with the BCFPA. We plan on hosting an in-person speakers evening seminar sometime in the fall, so keep your eyes open when we announce the date. Lastly, if you have any questions for Alain, you are most welcome to either type it out in the Zoom chat on the right-hand corner at any time during the talk, or open up your mic and webcam and ask him during the Q&A period. I would like to now pass the mic on to Alain, who will now speak to you all on his talk on barcodes and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm just going to share my screen. There we go. Well, firstly, thank you, Stephanie and team, for giving us the opportunity at GS1 to share a little bit of information on barcodes, GTINs, everything associated with product identification, the importance of respecting regulations, new regulations that come on board as we go along, and we'll review as well some of the tools and resources. So it's great to be with you here today, and we'll kick it off. So today's agenda, we will go through an introduction, brief introduction to GS1 Canada, who we are, what we do, how we fit into the supply chain. We'll talk about GTINs, barcodes, and product ID. We'll talk about when to change your barcode and GTINs. We'll pay some attention to regulations and labeling, and then we'll touch on tools and resources for success on the different areas that are available at GS1 and how it all fits into the supply chain. And then we'll finish up with a Q&A. So how it all started. 50 years ago, the first barcode was affixed on a Wrigley's pack of gum in 1974. And ironically, in Canada, the first store, and I only found this out recently, the first store to scan items was a Steinberg store in Dorval on the West Island, where the airport is. And ironically, this is where I was born and I was raised. And I never knew that until I got into the barcode business. So there you go. Steinberg's Dorval, first scan in Canada. So where have we gone? Well, we're celebrating a happy 50th anniversary of the barcode this year. So we're sharing that message. We're also sharing where we've been and then where we're going. It's clear that the times have changed. Innovation, technology has made it that the barcode itself carries a lot more information than it did 50 years ago, when it was essentially used for speed and accuracy at the cash counters with a little bit of inventory control, but it really wasn't very developed at all. So where we are and where we're going is the 2D world. So 50 years later, this year, we're going to be introducing 2D barcodes, which are going to be able to encode even more information as that product and those products carry out through the supply chain. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into symbology. So to put us in perspective in terms of the power of standards, we've got a video here to show you, and then we'll come back.
Who is GS1 Canada? GS1 Canada helps Canadian businesses succeed every day and everywhere around the globe. GS1 is a not-for-profit organization that develops, implements, and manages supply chain standards in multiple industries and in more than 150 countries. We provide industry with the tools, trust, and confidence they need to achieve business goals. The GS1 system of standards are built on 4 core principles, enabling industry to identify, capture, share, and use perpetually cleansed, accurate, and trusted product information. Our suite of solutions allow trading partners to speak to one another using one powerful global language of business. In the healthcare and pharmacy sector, GS1 standards help enable patient safety and improve the quality and efficiency of the healthcare system. Food service and grocery trading partners use GS1 global standards and registries to share brand-certified product, marketing, and nutritional information and images. This enhances consumers' safety and confidence in the food they eat and in the stores they shop at. Today, organizations recognize that effective data management tools are critical for business success. Canadian retailers are collaborating with their general merchandise and hardlines trading partners on the use of GS1 Canada product data management services to get products onto shelves and into consumers' hands faster. These tools also enhance product recall processes and improve marketing and advertising capabilities. Global standards, trusted data from an organization that is constantly innovating. Canadian business runs on GS1 services and business solutions.
So to emphasize who we are and how it works, we are one of 116 member organizations across the world, making GS1, the Barcodes, the GTINs worldwide and recognized worldwide. Over 20 sectors, 10 billion barcodes are read over the planet every day. So being neutral, it really doesn't matter to us whether you have one product on the market or 5,000 products on the market. Same systems, same approach, same identifiers, recognized worldwide. So we remain very neutral and do not take any parties, one or more, in any way possible. It is very, very neutral. So global standards, as the video depicted, we identify the standards, we capture the standards through symbology, and we share all that information amongst the networks, amongst all the subscribers, the data providers, the data recipients, and then we use the standards to make sure we have a common theme across the supply chain. What does it mean for GS1 in Canada? Having all these member organizations, we start with the standards, and then there's specific areas that each country specializes in. So in our case, in Canada, we offer a pretty full gamut of services throughout. So we're standards developers. We work with the industry, with the community to obtain the needs to develop the standards and make sure they are commonly used across the board in Canada. We educate the industry, much like we're doing today. For me, I'm much more of an educator. I'm not here to sell you anything whatsoever. I'm here to educate, to make sure we understand what's important, how to get a product to market, how to respect regulations, labelings, everything else associated through the supply chain. So I just emphasize that we're very much, in my case, in our division, community engagement at the education level. And then we implement as we go along based on the need. From a strategic standpoint, these are some of the partner organizations we deal with across Canada. So we have, starting with global partners, then we have our Canada founding associations, which are key. We have additional Canadian partners. And then recently, over the last couple of years, sustainability, Traceability has become very important in the supply chain. And so we've developed those strategic partnerships in sustainability and traceability, and these increase as we go along. How do we support small business? Because our division, community engagement, the division I work with, is very much in the education mode and wanting to educate small business, startups, scale-ups on what they're going to need to eliminate some of the costly hurdles and how to get their products to market. So what we do at that level is we have regulation updates on an ongoing basis. For example, nutrition facts tables, FOP labeling, front of pack labeling, which we'll touch on a little bit more in detail. These are the types of things we share on an ongoing basis with all our subscribers and all our viewers through our sites. We have podcasts with contemporaries and experts that come in and talk about the business and the different elements. We have small business and GS1 subscription resources through training and education that we offer, again, for a full gamut from the startups right up to the more experienced vendors and manufacturers. We have a mentorship program that we've started this year that it's still effective for those that want to join, and it is free of charge. And we have our LinkedIn community and small business advisory group at large in the community. So that essentially encompasses GS1 globally, where we come from, and then what we do from a Canadian standpoint. Next is a little bit more of the nuts and bolts, GTINs, barcodes, and product identification. And this is really where it all starts. Let's have a look at why product information and identification is so important. We have a video here, and we'll come back and get into the details.
Think about the way consumers shop today. Sure, we still go to physical stores, but we also search, compare, and buy online through our smartphones, laptops, and tablets. Selection used to be limited to what we could physically find and buy. Now we have the world at our fingertips. But how does Kelly know that what she's finding in her online search is really what she's looking for? And how can Sweetie Pie brands and Darcy's make sure that their products are discoverable and accurately represented across all channels? The times may have changed, but the answer remains the same. Unique identification through the use of GS1 standards. In the physical world, the number used in a UPC barcode actually represents a global trade item number, or GTIN, that uniquely identifies that item all around the world. With this kind of unique identification, trading partners can exchange information automatically and accurately throughout the supply chain and with their consumers. In today's omni-channel world, products appear on physical and digital shelves. But a product's digital data is not always what it should be. Search engines are dealing with product data that is not structured consistently, so Kelly gets different results depending on how and where she searches. There is no way for search engines to find the right products each and every time, let alone look for duplicates or flag incorrect information. Some products appear when others don't. And even when Kelly gets to the right product, the quality of the information can be incorrect, incomplete, or irrelevant. It's a hassle for consumers like Kelly, and it's a liability for brand owners and retailers. Proprietary numbering systems confuse matters even further. Without a standardized global system, the same identification number can yield very different results. It seems complicated, but there's a simple solution. Encoding a global trade item number and product data into product web pages. With products identified in a standardized way, search engines can more easily find the right product with the right information attached to it. Consumers get robust, accurate search results, and they know exactly what they are comparing as they shop. They have access to more detailed product information, where to buy based on their location, precise product comparisons, and real-time social media reviews through the linking of relevant data. Sweetie Pie brands and Darcy's can be more confident that their products will appear in the right consumer searches with the right information, making them as appealing online as they are in the store. The use of GS1 standards revolutionized the retail world with the barcode more than 40 years ago. Now's the time to take unique GS1 identification and attributes online and ensure the best omni-channel shopping experience for consumers like Kelly.
Okay, global trade item number, as depicted in the video. It is a globally unique identification number that sits underneath the symbology, underneath the barcode. These codes are permanently assigned and cannot be reused or reassigned. Once a product gets introduced in the market with a GTIN, a global trade item number, it takes a life of its own. The GTIN can be captured in all kinds of different barcodes, which we'll have a look right here. The most common ones, UPCA or UPC code, is a symbology that's still used in North America on a day-to-day basis. The GS1 data matrix is a 2D barcode that's going to be introduced more and more as we go along. And the next is a data bar, GS1 data bar, which is a stacked, what we call a stacked barcode for small footprint, essentially used on produce and vegetables. And then the GS1 128, which is essentially used for shipping and logistics purposes only and is not scannable at point of sale. From a global standpoint, we touched on the GTIN. The GS1 GTIN is recognized worldwide. In this case here, when we look at the EAN and UPC family, we are starting to recognize the UPC more and more as a GTIN 12, a GTIN 12 digit. The EAN, which stands for European Article Number, is a 13 digit. And so that will be soon identified as GTIN 13. And by the way, the EAN 13 or GTIN 13 is the most commonly used barcode in the world. North America sits more with UPC 12 digit, EAN 13, pretty well the rest of the world. On the right-hand side, we go into the 2Ds, the GS1 data matrix, which is essentially where we're going. And on the bottom, the GS1 128 and ITF 14, again, are for shipping and logistics purposes only. So each product needs a unique GTIN, as we spoke. In this example here, we've got some green apple tea and some sweet pear tea. They right now currently have the same barcode. That is a no-no. It needs to have a separate GTIN or barcode. Same size of tea bag, different flavors. That's called a different attribute. And so you need a different GTIN. From a case and packaging level standpoint, each item or POS item needs to have its individual GTIN. Now, in this example, if you were sending 4 jars to a distributor or a retailer, they would have 4 jars in the case, and then you would assign an ITF or a GS128 barcode only for control of shipping and not to be sold. That case of 4 could not be sold as a standalone case. Same applies for the pallet. If you're sending, in this case, 18 cases of 4 jars, they would now hold an individual GTIN on each jar, an ITF 14 on the case, and a GS 128 for the pallet for control purposes through the supply chain. One of the common questions that we get is, how many GTINs do I need? How many GTINs and barcodes do I need? So we offer a GTIN estimator to give you an idea of what the breakdown would be. The example here shows 3 sizes, 3 flavors, 3 specialties, 3 packages. In this example, you would need 81 different GTINs or barcodes. On a more simpler approach at the bottom, Alain's hot sauce, 2 sizes, 4 flavors, no varieties, no variations. You would need 8 GTINs for that example. So the difference between having all the rest of those different attributes versus a pretty straightforward item. Once that GTIN is assigned, the next level is the identity, or what we call in our world attributes. Every one of these elements is called an attribute, and we stress the importance to define those key products in the data world. And the more information folks are able to give on their products and identify it succinctly and clearly, the better it is going to be recognized throughout that supply chain. When to change a barcode, how we are going to jump into a little bit more of the regulations, when to change a GTIN or a barcode. There are three guiding principles. Consistent interpretation, the areas of attention are highlighted, something highlighted, and a framework for making decisions is provided. It relies and depends on three very distinct categories. The consumer needs to be able to distinguish a product from a previous or current product. If there are regulatory or liability disclosure requirements, they need to be identified for the consumer and the trading partner. And then if there's any substantial impact to the supply chain, shipping, storage, received, inventory control, that needs to be addressed as well. And those are the guiding principles to be able to determine whether or not we need a new GTIN, a new barcode, a new case config, and new GS128 or an ITF14. So as a few examples, when do I need? New products always need a GTIN, always a new GTIN. You cannot reuse, as we mentioned before, an existing GTIN. As the example here, plus or minus 20% of a size of package. If you change anything within 20%, you don't need a separate GTIN or a new GTIN. Anything differing from that size, you're going to need a new GTIN. There are in the standards world 10 GTIN management rules. They start with new product and they go all the way to the price on pack. These are the areas that will determine whether or not you need a new GTIN and a new barcode on a product. Let's have a look at a few examples. Rule number one, new product intro. Absolutely, I need a new GTIN. When we look at the GTIN A, GTIN B on the party pack, every one of these jars needs its individual GTIN, but some of these configurations are sold as a party pack. So now the first pack has a different content than the second pack, which means each pack would have its own GTIN for point of sale, and each jar has its individual GTIN in the eventuality that it gets sold individually. So it first gets identified individually, and then if it's a party pack, as per this example, it needs its separate GTIN as well. Rule number two, declared formulation or functionality. You see here a difference in the juice at 22% to 26%, give or take, minus or 25% juice, non-taxable. It needs a new GTIN. That's a different formulation. Fresh meat, frozen meat needs a new GTIN. Even if it's the same piece of meat, needs a separate GTIN. Alerts on bottles, anything that's going to have a separate either claim or disclaimer, even if it's the same product, and if it has a different disclaimer, you will need a new GTIN. And as simple as sliced and unsliced bread, both would need their individual GTIN. Declared net content, 320, 380, 1.21, 990 mil, 340, 300, hairspray, 100 to 115, you need a new GTIN. And those are the declared net content. A difference in net content always necessitates a new GTIN. Rule number four, dimensional or gross weight change. A dimension, as we talked about before, 20%, give or take 20%, don't need a new GTIN. In the examples here that we have, because the packs are either different, they're set up differently, like those cans are, or that bottle of wine is more than 20%. In these cases, you all need a new GTIN. And those are the four very popular ones that come, in terms of question most often. That's why we spend a little bit of time reviewing those. Next is regulations and labeling. And I know this is one of the areas that we wanted to spend some time in. So what are the considerations and impacts? Well, you got business regulations, regulation standards, industry-specific requirements. In our case, we're in the food, packaging and labeling requirements, claims and certifications, which become important as well, nutrition facts table, front of pack labeling, and then selling options through brokers and distributors, which become important as well because you have different players involved and they need to know everything about the regulations. So types of regulations, as we know, starts for us in Canada at the federal end. It gets moved down to provincial and territorial, and then municipal. If you're operating a kitchen or a farm or anything in a municipality, you need to have your licenses and your food premise inspections and so on. Then industry associations like yours pass those and comply with regulatory requirements, pass on a lot of that information along. And then regulatory bodies, colleges, government approved organizations who collaborate to ensure that regulations are in compliance and that are shared consistently. From an industry specific requirement, we're dealing in the food here. So FDA, SFCA are the two major regulated bodies. Healthcare and pharmacy have the FDA as well, the Food and Drug Act, consumer goods, and then cannabis, which has been added the last few years, both on the social and the medical side, both have their standards very highly regulated in that area as well. So packaging and labeling requirements in Canada and pretty well throughout the world, there are 4 areas. Consumer goods, which is what we call hard goods. Textiles, which need to have their individual labeling. All the pharma and drugs for human use need to have specific specifications. And then in our world, in the food products, nutrition facts need to be up to snuff at all times. The importance of accurate bilingual content. In Canada, anything being sold at a retail end needs to have a French and English exact same writing and descriptions throughout the label. And that's one that we get quite often with businesses and brand owners that are starting to move their products in a more important fashion. As they hit a little bit more of those important trading partners, they will be asked, they will not be able to get their products on a store shelf without them being fully bilingual. Same applies for claims and certifications. We've got some examples here of, USDA organic, that's strictly American. In that case, it doesn't need to be bilingual, but all the ones that are in Canada, if you are selling these products, it's important to validate those certifications and to ensure they're bilingual as well. Nutrition facts tables. We touched on a little bit of the changes in regulations that happened. Well, late last year, the new nutrition facts tables changed a little bit. They'll emphasize certain areas, like in this case, the calories and sodiums and certain highlights are bolded just to make sure that all are in compliance. And this was introduced late last year, and the brand owners and manufacturers have till the end of December 2025 to be in compliance. There's always a little bit of a grace period because of all the products either on the market or labeling or packaging or content or containers that are already in circulation. So these things don't happen overnight, but this is the type of information that we help pass on to all concerned to make sure that, hey, when you're ready to reprint your labels or containers, to make sure you have the latest nutrition facts tables. Front of pack. Front of pack is the latest one that was introduced in November of 2023. This impacts the product certification as well, just in passing. So what we're emphasizing here is anything with saturated fat, sugars, and sodium needs to be identified on the front of pack. So any one of the first 5 ingredients that contains saturated fat, sugars, and sodium will need to be shown on the front. Do we need another GTIN? No. If the same formula, the same content, the same ingredients are used, you do not need to change the GTIN. This is strictly a printing matter of showing those 3 different ingredients on the front of pack. In parallel to that, just as an example of things and attributes that we update and upgrade as we go along. November 2023 as well, Government of Quebec launched new regulations for beverage manufacturers with aluminum packaging sold in Quebec. The 355 mil, the 200 mil containers, typical pop cans and water cans were already in regulation in terms of consignment and recycling. As of November 1st, 2023, 100 millimeters to 2-liter containers of aluminum content will need to have that attribute listed as a consignment and added in for deposit and refund purposes in Quebec. So any manufacturer outside of Quebec selling into Quebec will need to respect these new regulations. And that will be, it is in key right now and will be mandatory by January 1st, 2026. Brokers and distributors. Why the importance of brokers and distributors, especially when you're moving products, to ensure that regulations are met as well when dealing with these folks. Often enough, brokers, distributors are either dealing nationally, regionally, or internationally. So very important that while we think our regulations are up to snuff, if you're moving a product abroad, you'll need to ensure either through your broker or through the importing or exporting party to ensure that the regulations are up to snuff in the receiving country and our country if you're importing products. So brokerage fees are always to be considered. We always encourage them to negotiate. How to choose the right broker? A couple of tips we always give: evaluate the sector and specialty. If you're in the same sector, try and find brokers that are already there. The geographical locations they specialize in will help you. And then if you're using co-packers, either abroad or here to produce, we always encourage you to control your own GTINs so that if one day you need to change co-packer or change broker or change distributor, you still have the right to that GTIN with your brand ownership. From a distributor standpoint, retailers, marketplaces, local and interprovincial, they can help as well. Depending on how you're planning to move your product, or that brand owner or founder, however they choose to move their product, these are opportunities they have to move product through these types of individuals. Always consider the cost of goods at the end of the day, because you've got a few people stepping on it before it gets to the end price for the consumer. And how to choose the best distributor, no right or wrong here. Common delivery runs are key with retailers and timeliness. And again, evaluate the sector specialty, if any, and consider shipping logistics. Either you're doing it yourself or you're going to pass that responsibility onto the distributor. Tools and resources for success. We bring it back into GS1. So we now have the GTIN. We now have our attributes. They've been added into the system. What are we going to need in terms of tools and resources to make sure we bring it to the next level? These are the types of things we hear from business owners. I'll let you read those bubbles for a couple of seconds before we jump in. As brand owners increase and scale up and get more important trading partners, it becomes important to now get in, without calling it the real world, get into the world where some of these things, quality images, quality pictures, product data, attributes, become important. They become important because they are a need for either the retailer, the marketplace, or even your own online shops that you're moving your products through. So these are the types of things that come into play. And then we'll look at what it all means as you start getting into the GS1 world and the trading partner world. So when you get a subscription with us, the first and foremost thing you have is your own portal. And you have here what we call My Tools. This comes with your basic subscription of either 1, 10, 20, 30, 40 GTINs, all the way up to the corporate levels. Manage My GTINs is where it all starts. This is where you're going to assign your GTINs and your case hierarchies right from the beginning. It helps you to manage. So as you grow the number of GTINs that you have, subscribers are able to manage the efficiencies of those GTINs within this portal. Then you're able to assign all your applications, your consumer units, inner cases, display shipping, pallets, and mixed pallets. This is all done here within the Manage My GTN network. You have your GTN, you're starting to identify your product, your barcodes. The next level, as we talked before, is the product identity, the information that's going to be attached to that product. What we use in our world is a software called ProSync. ProSync is the software that enables you to enter all these product attributes within a registry that's going to be accessed by all retailers and omni-channel participants within the GS1 world. Your landing page, now that you have your GTNs, will look like this. Your ProSync will now be added to your landing page. And if you look at the bottom, and I'm sure that's a little bit maybe small for you, but the trading partner requirements, ABC Inc. that we've shown here, you're noticing e-com content marketing, new item, nutritional planogram, recall. As you get into more important trading partners, they will ask you for this information. And this information is available to you as you grow your services as you go along. There is no need for this at the startup if you're at a startup stage, even at a scale-up stage. But when you hit trading partners of more importance, they will ask you for some of this information, and then you're able to add those services to your subscription. ECC Net Industry Managed Solution. This is essentially what we're talking about. ECC Net New Item Setup is the ProSync software that enables you to put your new items in the registry. From there, you have all the rest of the what we call IMS, Industry Managed Solutions, services that are created for the industry by the industry. So the industry determines what they're going to need. We create the standards and everything that's attached and implement these within our registries so that access could be had by both manufacturer and retailers. The registry comprises 150 plus buyers and retailers right now, only in GS1 in Canada. Over 700,000 products reside in that registry, probably closer to 800,000 right now. And again, all those products are perpetually cleansed and updated with bilingual content on an ongoing basis. Why is data quality important? We've listed some of the perils here of when important data is not accurate and complete. First and foremost, the loss of revenue. You want your products to be moved. You don't want them sitting in a warehouse waiting for additional data or information that is not completed either in your listing form or as your attributes, as your pre-requirements to get your products on the shelf. All the rest of the perils come into play, but we always emphasize the loss of revenue. You want to move your product at all cost. The registry itself. This is what it looks like without a GS1 database or registry. Brand manufacturers are talking to retailers and everybody's talking a different language. You run into governance issues, content for retailers, data management's inaccurate. Image and data standards are not the same. You get inconsistent content. French translations aren't consistent. You get incorrect dims and weights. The retailers today and online marketplaces are looking for consistency, and they want to ensure that they have access to that information quickly and accurately. This is what it looks like when we're all talking the same language. Your images, your captures, your weights, your dims, your compliance, your efficient updating. We put an emphasis here on capture once to many. When you enter as a brand owner, that information and those attributes in the registry, you are doing this once for all the retailers to have access to. So it's very efficient in terms of access and updating once you only need to do it once. Again, as you grow your business and you get in with multiple trading partners, that becomes an important key. So you have your GTNs, You have your attributes. You have loaded it into ECCnet. You may have some additional IMS systems that are added. You're now at the point of quality images. It is very important, and we always stress the importance of having standardized images and quality image. It is your brand. It is you. You represent that image entirely. So we always put an emphasis on the image and data capture services. We have a studio in Montreal where we offer all these services. Again, being a cost recovery, not-for-profit organization, whatever it costs us is what we charge. And so if you went to a marketing agency of some sort, it would cost you a lot more money to get imaging, e-commerce content, planogram, nutritional content, and all the rest of it. So we have a studio in Montreal that we do this. We consider this a value add. And again, the importance of high quality images. Some of these retailers are going, they have resolution specs, they have specifications, number of images that they need, different angles, different shots. So we are aware because we deal with all these folks. So we know exactly when there's a request to come in to get imaging services. We know exactly what the retailer is looking for. So let's have a look at our studio in Montreal, and we'll come back and wrap it up.
Good business requires great content. Your business success relies on your ability to provide customers with a great product experience and trading partners with the professional quality, reliable image data and content they need when they need it. GS1 Canada's content capture services can help by providing the 100% accurate and complete global standard product images and data your trading partners require for online marketplaces, retail planogramming, food service catalogs, advertising flyers, marketing collateral, medication dispensing, and more. Our commitment to data excellence ensures your product content can be easily uploaded, updated, and efficiently shared with your trading partners from one place, ensuring accurate and consistent brand representation for products across the grocery, food service, healthcare, pharmacy, and general merchandise and hardline sectors. At our Montreal studio, every product goes through a finely tuned content capture process, developed and refined through 25 years of industry collaboration and global best practice expertise. When a product arrives, it is inspected for damage and storage requirements.
When I receive the package, I make sure there's no physical damage.
Products are then weighed and measured using a consistent, standardized methodology across all brands and product categories. This standardized data is essential for accurate planogramming and e-commerce shipping estimates.
We take the product, we weigh it, and then we measure it. We give it a global standard product code, and then we also identify the item, if it's plastic or cardboard. The retailers are relying on us to do accurate measures to put their products on the shelves.
Once normalized on-pack data is captured, products are cleaned and prepped to perfection behind the scenes, ready for professional image capture. Our expert photographers ensure optimized lighting and that the required angles and views are captured according to GS1 Global Standard Image Guidelines. Once captured, images are sent to an editing specialist.
We ensure that the images are perfect. We retouch if needed. We ensure that everything is legible, and we provide high quality images. The goal is to reproduce the in-store experience, but without having the product in your hands.
Touch-ups can include color correction, glare removal, enhanced legibility, and creation of closed-cut clipping paths for consistent results.
While we work on cosmetics, we need to make sure that the colors are perfectly representative of the product we have in hand.
Final quality assurance testing ensures content is ready to be uploaded and shared with trading partners. Whether you are selling packaged goods, health and beauty products, food service, pharmaceutical, or any number of other products and categories in-store or online, GS1 Canada's diverse content capture services provide flexible options to meet trading partner demands for a single source of standardized, reliable images and data. Ensure your trusted content is easily accessible to the distribution channels you count on to successfully bring products to consumers with GS1 Canada's content capture services.
And that takes care of my portion of the presentation. I will also include this slide here in the slide deck, where all kinds of links of different areas that we've covered here today that you'll be able to have access to following the presentation. So, Stephanie, do we have any questions in the chat or live questions from your group?
Looks like I don't see any questions, but I do have one question for you. I'm curious about the content capture service. What
Yes.
is generally the typical turnaround time? I can imagine GS1 receiving like hundreds of thousands of products that they have to go through.
Yeah, depending on the time of year, our general average is 2 to 3 days.
Wow, that's very
And
quick.
it could be as short as 24 hours. Like in the summer periods, like right now, there's always a little bit of a lull. We realize there's folks on holidays and so on and so forth. But at this time of year, 24, max 48 hours, we turn around those images.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions they'd like to ask Alain? Oh, looks like
Simon.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so what you've described sounds like a wonderful resource for Canadian producers and I guess probably works across the border. But say there's a small producer from, say, the UK that wants to bring a product into the Canadian market. Do they use your services, or is there a UK counterpart that will kind of guide them into the Canadian market? So I'm just curious as to how that works. Or do they find a partner in Canada that will kind of, an importer that'll do that for them? Or yeah, just curious how that works.
Combination of both. Depending on the product, the sector, they can choose to do this all on their own and sell directly to a retailer. And then in this case, if they have their GTIN or their barcode with GS1, it will be recognized. You mentioned the UK. In their case, it would be a GTIN 13. And in most cases, those are recognized here as well. We issue GTIN 12s, as I mentioned before. They can either do it directly, go through an importer, or have some type of distributor bring their product in, and then from there, have that distributed within Canada. In their case, they would need to ensure that they're in compliance with Canadian regulations, depending on the product and the sector. And then again, brokers or distributors in Canada would help them with that because they're familiar with what it needs to get products in their retail stores.
Right. So that's usually the route they would find a Canadian broker who's going to kind of take care of adjusting their product to meet Canadian guidance. And so, but their GTIN that already exists, that they already have in their jurisdiction, would be totally valid over here, and they would.
Correct. Okay. You know, and in the case of the UK, Simon, it would most likely be best for them to assign a new GTIN. Reason being is chances are they probably only have English on their package in the UK. So right. They would need to have French and English here. And they could use the same GTIN because that's just a print difference. But then you're having to manage the same GTIN in two different countries with really two products, because you wouldn't want to mix up the French and English with an English only. So in that case, they will most likely recommend to have a separate GTIN for the bilingual content for Canada.
Okay.
But the GTIN would then be, as we recommend, controlled by the brand owner in the UK, so that if they change brokers or distributors in Canada, they still have the ownership of that GTIN and that license, as opposed to having the distributor in Canada have a GTIN and the license to that product.
Makes sense. Okay, thanks.
We have another question from Daphne. What sort of relationship does GS1 have with the Canadian General Standards Board? Two-way communication?
Yes, very much so. We rely, because we deal with all the health and associations and regulatory bodies in Canada, we don't determine those standards and those bodies. We take all that information and to make sure it is shared throughout our network. So we have a two-way arrangement with all of these folks because we're basically a resource center. We don't determine the standards or influence the standards. We just apply the standards and support the standards, especially in regulatory environments.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions?
Okay, I have one more. So you handle sort of the, what was it, the medical, like basically anything people will take internally, I guess, comes under your system. Is that the same then for your counterparts in other countries? Because I was just, in the regulatory world, there's been a lot of discussion in the last few years about this sort of nutraceutical, foods, functional foods, and so on that kind of cross that boundary between medicinal products. And so it works well because you're one unified system that can assign a number that, regardless of which side of that line the products fall on. But in different jurisdictions, they're going to fall on different. That line is drawn in a different place, and so are your counterparts in other countries the same? That they also do the same product?
Yeah, if we go back to the regulations, it's federally owned first, and then it goes into provincial, and then you have the industry specifics. So if we're talking, drug and pharma, generally it is controlled federally, and then provincially, depending on the application, we'll use cannabis as an example. They will have their own jurisdiction. So it will be governed from a federal standpoint and then individually governed in the province. And then the determination of whether or not it is socially accepted for consumption or only medical and or both.
Right. No, but I was also meaning because it's a global system. So going back to the UK again, would the UK agency that counterparts does the same as you, sort of provides those services in the GTINs, and for UK producers, would it also cover foods and pharmaceuticals and nutritional products? Okay.
Generally, yes. Generally, yes. I wouldn't declare it to be exactly the same as Canada because each country has their own little differences. But as a general rule, yes would be the answer. They'll deal in the different sectors. And in the pharma world, they have the different regulations and stuff. But it all comes back down to the product, the unique product identifier in the GTIN. And that doesn't necessarily change. There are different areas, different symbologies that might be used for pharma and medical. We talked about 2D earlier on. 2D is very present in the medical field because it carries a lot more information for patient safety, patient understanding, doctor's understanding of the drugs, how to take, when to take, so on and so forth. So why we're going to the 2D? To be able to encode even more information. Cannabis right now is pretty well all 2D and growing, and the pharma and medical world is actively going to 2D. The last to follow would be the hard goods and the food. And there is a soft launch Jan 1st, 2027. So no rush to the finish line, but really going to be interesting for them to determine if 2D is going to be the route, if they need to carry and encode more of that information, or stay with the linear barcode, which is what they're currently using as a standard.
One last question. I see there's one more in the chat, but I'll and is it the same reader for like a store for the retail end, or well, I guess all the way through the supply chain? Is it the same readers for 2D and 1D, or you need to retool with?
Yeah, there'll need to be some retooling, both on the software and hardware end, because the 2D, you're basically reading a vertical and a horizontal line. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the linear, it's only a horizontal line with the vertical lines read horizontally. So yes, there are some retailers that have adopted, but there's going to have to be some updates and upgrades, both software and hardware, to be able to accommodate reading both a linear and a 2D barcode going forward.
Okay.
If you're a new food processor, you're just starting your company and you you have a few products and you're developing your labels. Do I join your association, or like I become a member and I buy a certain number of codes or GTNs? Is that how it works?
Yeah, what we call in our world is you become a subscriber. You're not a member. You subscribe to the licensing of your GTNs, depending on the size of your organization, the revenue base, and then the number of GTNs or barcodes you're going to need. There's different packages that align themselves based on your need and based on your eventual growth if you're going to move into 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 products down the road. So it's what we call subscription, and then you get adopted in that subscription package based on your need and your revenue stream.
I also have a question about when you the needing a new GTN. If you do like a really minor ingredient change, do you have to do anything?
No, it needs to be at the top level ingredients. It needs to be changed drastically. But we always encourage you going to our GTN ombudsman to really get into the detail of the ingredient. And we've changed. We talked about the front of pack labeling, new requirements. Anything sodium, fats, sugars, that always a little bit more trickier. So we always encourage going to the GS1 ombudsman to really get down to the finite details of exactly that product. In some cases, you don't need a new GTN. In other cases, you will need a new GTN.
I only know about label regulations, not this. And I help a lot of people with their labels, and then I go, I don't know anything about GS1 because it's not my thing. I'm regulatory.
There you go.
It's good to know something about it, though. Can people?
Well, it's just to be aware if you're going to be counseling someone or giving advice or something. It's just to be mindful so that you don't go out and print 25,000 labels only to find out that you're missing some information, or your content isn't bilingual, or your nutrition fact table is not up to speed. We certainly are trying to educate at the forefront as close enough to going to market as possible, just to make sure you minimize those costly hurdles.
It's absolutely mandatory to get into retail to have a code.
Yeah, I mean, at the short of having a small shop at the corner or a farmer's market or something where they may not need a GTN or a barcode, they may not even have scanners at the point of sale. But anything of retail importance, when you get into trading partners, they're going to ask you for a GTN. Both for point of sale, Nancy, and control and supply chain control from a logistics standpoint, because everything going through the supply chain always stems from that original product identifier, which is the GTN.
Can we use this information in other ways, like for recalls or anything like that? Like, is there any tracking that way?
Yeah, absolutely. As we talked about the registry before. That's actually one of the advantages in being in the registry is you can have a product recall in a snap if you're in the registry. Let's assume you're dealing with 3 different trading partners that are all part of the registry, and you need to do a product recall. It's as simple as putting that in there, and every one of them is going to be notified that product needs to be taken off the shelf. It's a very efficient tool when you're using it, and when we talked about the accuracy of the data. When the stuff's in there and it's complete and it's accurate, all the intermediate, all the players that have access to that registry, you're able to, in this case, have a product recall, and it's done in a snap.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. It's interesting.
If no one has any other, we have one question from Jasmine. If a company discontinues a product and then decides to bring the product back on to the shelf, can the same GTN be used, or a new one needs to be used with no changes in formulation?
If it is the exact same product, and what we call in our world a deactivation of the GTN. So you remove a product with an assigned GTN from the marketplace. So you deactivate that GTN. A year later or 2 years later, you want to reintroduce that Jeton with the exact same content formulation, you can use that Jeton again. Because that Jeton will remain part of your package. Let's assume you have 10 Jetons in your subscription package and you've used 8 and 2 of them are deactivated. Well, in a year, you're still paying for 10 Jetons, even though it's deactivated, because that's the package that you have. So in a year or 6 months or 2 years, you want to reactivate that Jeton, it is available to you, so long as it is the exact same product.
She asked, so Jeton is linked to a specific product for life?
Absolutely. It essentially takes a life of its own. So if you change that Jeton, if you change the ingredients or food or packaging, anything outside those, inside those management rules, you need to assign a new Jeton. And that Jeton is no longer available in the marketplace.
Which is why I remember a few years ago they added a digit, right? Because they were running out of. Kind of remember
Excellent,
that.
excellent
It's coming
point.
back to me now. Yeah.
Yep. Excellent
There's
point.
a lot of products on the market globally, and that number. Yeah. How many digits was it when it started? 70? Was it 74?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a good question. From my recollection and knowledge, it was 8.
Right.
And
now we're at
in
12.
North America, we're at a Jeton 12. And in the European article number, they're at 13.
Right.
Now, what becomes important as you grow your line and you exceed, let's say, 40 Jetons or 50 Jetons, you then fall into a world where you have a prefix assigned. A prefix are key numbers out of those 12 that identify your organization only. So let's assume you had a Jeton 12 with a 6 prefix number. That leaves you 6 numbers. So 6 numbers would give you 99,999 potential Jetons to use. Okay, so now you're talking the Kellogg's, the Krafts of the world, P&Gs. They don't even have that many Jetons, but they have a 6-digit prefix. So if you were starting off today and you wanted at least 100 Jetons, what you would get is an 8-digit or a 9-digit prefix to give you the last 3 numbers up to 99 potential Jetons that you can assign on your own. So you could go from a 9, an 8, a 7, and a 6 number prefix from 99 Jetons to 99,999 Jetons.
It's fascinating.
So the Cokes and the Pepsis and the P&Gs, they often have 3, 4 different prefixes, only because they may have bought another company or brought in products or merged 2 outfits together, and they have 2, 3, 4, 5 different prefix numbers for different brands that they categorize within there. Kraft is a great example of that.
Yeah, Kraft
having amalgamated many different brands.
Nestle or somebody, which is
exactly. So they'll keep the prefix to make sure that the product out on the market, they don't have to recall everything and then rebrand and recode. They leave the prefixes as is, but they now fall under a new ownership umbrella.
It's stuff of geeky dreams.
It's a numbers game, but it's all about the quantity and the size of the organization.
And so I'm dominating, but so your system for retailers, when there's a new Jeton added, is it some sort of automatic update that they receive for their database? If they start selling that product, it'll, all the information that links to that product will be contained. I'm curious how that system works. The Jeton's created, obviously the manufacturer signed it up, so they've created an information that goes with that, the pictures and everything. How does that get transferred to then the retailer or the distributor or whoever?
Yeah, the brand owner is always responsible for the product data, hence responsible for issuing the GTIN. When you get a listing form, if you're going to be listed at Loblaw or Save-Ons or Metro or whoever it is, they will ask you for specific attributes, specific services that they're going to need for you to list that product. As you enter that product through ProSync in the registry, Loblaw of the world has access to that product. So once you have entered all that key information in the registry and Loblaw is ready to place their orders, they're going to access that information through the registry as what we call a data recipient. They receive the data and then act upon it through the supply chain. But it is always the brand owner's responsibility to enter the information, to complete the listing forms for the trading partner, and let them know that it is in the registry and we're ready to fly with the assigned GTIN, with the product attributes, and everything attached to that specific product. Images, e-com content, planogram, product recall, anything that that trading partner is going to need is the brand owner's responsibility through a GS1 subscription package to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
Yeah, which makes sense. They're the ones who are most likely to get it right and have should have the responsibility of ensuring that information is accurate. So
correct.
Yeah.
Hence why that slide we showed before about the importance of the quality data and the perils if that data is not accurate. Your retailers are going to run into some snags in getting that product to market.
Do consumers have? It seems to me I had an app on my phone for a while that I could go into the grocery store and check out. Like here, I got a food product right here, and it would give me info. Do you see more use of that in the future? Little traceability, where I'm buying, where it's coming from, etc.
Very much so. That is where the 2D is going to, Nancy. Right now, if you look at some of the products out on the shelves, especially the bigger company, the Kellogg's and Crafts of the world, they will have the typical linear barcode on there for point of sale, and then they'll have a QR code on the product. I recently did a presentation and I brought a box of crackers, Kellogg's crackers. And on the top of the box, they had this little kind of charcuterie board with a QR code inside. And so when you scan that QR code, it gives you 12 recipes for those crackers. So that's an example of that third party. Is it a promo? Does it send you to a website? Does it give you recipes like this Kellogg's box of crackers did? What and where we're going is to combine the linear code with the QR code, making it 2D. And so it will be able to be scanned at the point of sale, and the consumer will be able to scan it and take you to these recipes as an example, or to a website, or to a promotional site as they please, or find out where was this sugarcane, where is it from? Who harvested? Which agricultural? Which farm did this meat come from? So on, so on, so on. That's where we want to go with getting all that information tied into the one 2D barcode.
My grocery shopping will now take much longer. I'll be reading too much.
Well, we see a lot of folks in the stores, obviously with their phones, and wherever there's a QR code, there's a story to tell or information relating to that product. And a lot of folks today like to find out a little bit more about the product, and hence why, the medical world has adopted it, the cannabis world has adopted 2D, because it carries and encodes all that much more information than just your POS, point of sale, brief identifier, price, so on, so on.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any last questions for Alain? If not, this wraps up our summer webinar series. On behalf of the BCFPA, I'd like to thank Alain for taking the time to speak to us on barcodes and product identification, labeling, and packaging requirements. If you're interested in Alain's slide deck, we will be sharing his deck to you all, as well as a link to the video recording of this webinar for those who have missed it. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and we hope to see you at our next event. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.